Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the United States. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Carl Dickinson, and tonight I'll be the moderator of the second presidential debate right here in Boston, Massachusetts. Tonight, we have Secretary Mark Mundin going up against the current Vice President, Mr. Zach Turnage. The rules for tonight's debate have been decided by the Federal Election Commission and are as follows. In the beginning, both candidates will get 2 minutes each for their opening statements. During these opening statements, candidates are prohibited to interrupt, and after the open statement period, we will then move on to our questioning period. During this time, each candidate will receive 30 seconds to answer the question fully. After the question has been answered, the other candidate will have his opportunity to give his answer. Once both candidates have answered, we will then go on to a debate period of 2 minutes before moving on to the next question. After all questions have been answered, we will then move on to the closing statements period, where candidates will have 2 minutes to convince America why they should be the next commander-in-chief. With that being said, let's introduce our candidates. First off, we have Secretary Mark Mundin from Boston, Massachusetts. Next up, please welcome our very own Vice President from New Haven, Vice President Zach Turnage. Thank you, gentlemen. Let us begin. Welcome, candidates, to tonight's debate. We hope you have prepared well. Each of you know the rules as we provided them to your campaigns earlier today. Our topics for tonight's debate are foreign diplomacy, past administrations, taxes and the economy, immigration, additions to the union, and education. Now, we'll move on with our opening statements, starting with Secretary Mundin. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. It's an honor to be with you, and I appreciate the chance to be here with the Vice President. I'm pleased at TD Garden under the great hospitality of Boston, Massachusetts, as well as would like to thank the Federal Commission on these debates. By the way, congrats on your newly wedded wife, Mr. Vice President. Tonight is the second time I stand before the American people. That allows me to reflect on the many great times I've met and the people that I've met through my time. As I have talked with my many citizens and their opportunities to make more money in this economic year, it has been great to see the progress in the American people towards their American dream. As through my plans and studying this year off and this new economic plan, because I know how it works, if you elect me, I want to continue to create more opportunities to put money in the pockets of the American people. I want to invite more players to join the atmosphere that these great people have so thankfully created. If you elect me, my fellow Americans, I want to make sure that the individual American has the chance to become of what they want to do in life. Let me produce more opportunities for America. Let me represent you. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Mundin. Vice President Turnage, your 2 minutes begin now.
First off, I'd like to thank God for allowing me to be here at this time, and I'd also like to thank God for giving a lot of people new opportunities, not only in the server, but real life, like myself. But now that that's out the way, I can get started. My fellow Americans, I'd like to thank all of you from at home and abroad, and thank the Federal Election Committee for hosting this event. I'd also like to thank Secretary Mundin for being here. Today, I'm opening my drive for victory in this presidential election, for this is a campaign for the presidency. My objective, therefore, is to convince the people of America that I am best fitted to carry the duties of office as President. And so I shall speak of future needs and positive programs. The success of my efforts in Boston will be determined by the American people. If a majority of voters in the United States endorse my candidacy here, I'm convinced that my candidacy will be in a strong position in the last debate in Washington, D.C. So I see no further reason to discuss the change in which my opponent wants to implement into the United States. It is nevertheless clear as to, I believe, that it will be the voice of the people that their votes really matter. I regret, too, that Secretary Munden is coming into Boston to challenge my legislative branch, my integrity, and my competence for the presidency. But I prefer to leave that judgment to you, the American people, and I shall accept their decisions on November 1st.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We'll now move on to our questioning period, starting off with the first category that we'll go into. Our first category tonight will be foreign diplomacy, and we're going to start with you, Mr. Vice President. The first question is, how can you assure that America will maintain and build relationships with other countries if you are elected president? You have 30 seconds.
First off, I think it plays a crucial role to maintain allies and different things of the sort with foreign diplomats, due to the fact that we have to have a connection with their people as well. Because if there's no connection with their people and our people do not get along, there's going to be fights and hiccups along the way. So I believe that it is essential that people of America get along with the allies of America as well. Because if that does not happen, then I do not think that it would end well.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How can you assure that America will maintain and build relationships with other countries if you are elected president? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. My plan on regards to foreign diplomacy is to expand our wings of democracy to the communities out there that best fit our atmosphere that we've created here. And it is suited that we find possible and equal, candidates that will fulfill and maintain our good relationship between the years and the future years to come.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll now move into our 2-minute debate period where both of you can debate why you are the better pick for expanding America in regards to foreign diplomacy. The 2 minutes starts now.
Well, I'm pretty sure Mr. Me and Munden here basically agree upon the same situation, aspects of foreign diplomacy, so I yield my time.
I believe me and the Vice President do agree on a lot of terms when it regards to maintaining foreign diplomacy, but I think it's most crucial that we give the maximum effort to that of the American people because that's who we represent. And tonight, I believe that question and many more topics are to come are the most crucial and things that we have to think about regarding the American people. I yield my time.
Thank you both. Thank you both for your answer. Secretary Munden, next question is for you. If America was in conflict with another country, how would you use foreign diplomacy to de-escalate the situation? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I believe that, in the future to come, with the retirement of our current president, that these possible threats might occur. And I believe that, when we call upon our allies and those that believe that can best suit our democracy and fulfill the needs of this country and our people, that when we're in time of need and when we need to, cool down a situation, I believe that we can call upon these allies and we can move forth to de-escalate any situation to come.
Thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President. If America was in conflict with another country, how would you use foreign diplomacy to de-escalate the situation? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I believe that to use foreign diplomacy to de-escalate this type of situation, what we would have to do first is to establish a base. So that would mean, obviously, the people that are against us, we would need to establish a connection with, specifically a speaking connection. We need to speak with them. The United States, I believe, where we stand, we're strong on our own. I do not believe that a lot of people will be coming forth and trying to mess with the
Thank you,
United
Mr. Vice
States.
President. Thank you. We'll now move into our 2-minute debate period. You may begin.
Okay, well, as I was saying, I believe that, speaking to the people that are against us is a good way to show diplomacy. I believe that a lot of things need to be talked about. I think Mr. Mundy can agree too. I do not think that the United States is hesitant if someone were to come out and declare war on us or try and bomb one of our cities. Obviously, I believe both me and Mr. Munden would do the same thing and fight back against the terrorism and a terrorist group that is also the head of it.
Well, like my counterpart here, I do believe in what he's saying. I think it's big and it's most important to the American people that we maintain a big stick policy. We're not going to take crap from any country that tries to threaten us, and we're going to do whatever it takes to defend our people here and abroad. That's the most important thing, the American people.
I agree. The American people come first.
I yield my time.
I yield my time as well.
Thank you both for those answers in the debate. Next question is to you, Mr. Vice President. How will you convince other countries to become allies with America without giving up American interest? You have 30 seconds.
First, I believe that spreading awareness is a big thing. I believe recruitment is a big thing, but you do not want to recruit the wrong type of people or pull in the wrong type of advertisement. I believe that to do so, you need to... That's a great question, Carl. I believe that you need to... I can't find the words on the tip of my tongue right now.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How will you convince other countries to become allies with America without giving up American interest? You have 30 seconds.
I think it's most responsible that when you are looking at a possible new ally or a person that's or a community that's trying to join the union, that you get to know them a little bit more and you try to find their best interests. And if they follow the same interests that we have for the American people, then I think it's best suited that they possibly are able to join us as allies. And if not, then I don't believe they are best suited for us at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Your 2-minute debate period begins now.
Well, in regards to my counterpart, I do believe he agrees with me on many things. I just think that, in my experience that I've had as Secretary of State and my time as presidency, that I believe with my experience that I think that I can make the best suitable decisions for what's best for the American heart. And I think that personally, if a country or a nation or an ally, doesn't follow those needs, then, we're not going to give them the light of day. If they choose to not show up to missions.
Isn't it true that under your presidency, that President Turnage was carrying your presidency? So how could you make those remarks when the United States at the time hardly had any allies?
Well, of course, in any job, Mr. Vice President, that you learn an experience like no other. And the thing is in everything you do, you learn from your mistakes, and it's a learning experience. And when you have that experience, you're able to go into the next try and the next opportunity with the best thing you have. And now that I've polished myself, and I believe that I can fully establish and work for the American people at their best heart.
So, Mr. Munn, I have a question for you. So you do not think that it was solemnly right what you did previously back in the day?
Of course, I mean I had my struggles as as president. There was a lot of times we had civil war going on, but it's no excuse. And learning back and looking at it, you can obviously see that you know,
Thank
it was a
you
learning
both.
experience, and you
Thank you
can
both very
definitely
much.
move on from there.
Thank you.
Wasn't
Mr. Vice
the
President.
person who
Mr.
started the
Vice
Civil
President, we're
War
gonna
your
move on.
vice president?
Mr. Vice President, we're gonna move on to our next category. Our next category is past administrations. We'll start with you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do differently from the last administration, that being your father's administration, President Turnage? You have 30 seconds.
I believe what I would do differently was I'd probably fill up more roles. I did not think that I fill up enough roles as we do now. Also, recently, as you all know, the American people know, I got a job, so I've been here less. So I wish that I could be here more and aid the American people so we can actually do more stuff, as well as when I help participate in the military trainings. Some
Thank you,
people do
Mr.
not
Vice
agree with
President.
that, but
Thank you,
I
Mr. Vice
do
President.
it for out of my heart to help the community grow.
I just want to remind the candidates that both campaigns agreed to the campaign rules for this debate, so please stick by them and please follow them. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. What would you do differently from the last administration, that being the administration of President Turnage? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think personally, when you look back at the Turnage administration, you can learn a lot of things. You know, working under the Turnage administration, we've established, you know, a lot of new testing areas, and they've actually produced more progress than we ever thought was possible. And definitely, you know, when I'm looking back on it, I wouldn't really change too much of the, you know, positions that we hold, and hopefully, you know, through this next coming year that we can perfect
Thank
the
you, Mr.
economic
Secretary.
system and we can move on.
Thank you very much. The debating period starts now. You have 2 minutes.
Well, Mr. Vice President, you said earlier, when I recollect on the transcript, that you stated that you got a new job, and it's you're trying to find new roles as you've established that you've gotten a new job. But I ask you this, Mr. Vice President, do you really think that with your new job and the way that you're looking at new roles, do you really think that you're the correct role for the American people as president?
Yes, I do, Mr. Munden. I have a job. I still manage to get on, try and speak with other people. But a majority of the time, the American people, from what I've noticed, they get on earlier in the days and not late at night like you usually get on, and also the president. And so during the times that you guys get on later in the day, there's other people that are up earlier in the day, like myself, and different people along the lines of like Elk Eliminator and Planet Amazing is also
we've mentioned, but what we've mentioned is that you are not going to have enough time to spend with the American people. You've stated that even with your job, that you said that you were sorry and that you wish you had more time to do things that you would like to do, but at the current state right now, you're not able to fulfill that role.
I said during the time I wish that I had more roles. During the time I wish that I could have done more, yes. I completely agree that I should do more for the American people, and that's the plan.
So I ask this to the American people.
Look, what I've
do you really
done,
believe that
I've
a man
jobs for the American people
that wishes he could do more to be your president? Or would you rather have a man that's been here this whole time and has been working nonstop for the American people?
Oh, that's just a straight lie. You tried to sell out the American people for $70, Mr. London. Not only mentioning that, but you also kicked out over 600 members during the process.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I'd like to move on to our next question. Starting with you, Mr. Secretary. Which administration do you think you would base your administration off of if elected? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. And honestly, like I stated before, I believe the Turnage administration is definitely, something that you can put on the chalkboard and you can look at as reference. Like I've stated before, we've made huge accomplishments this year. Since April 11th, the unemployment rate has gone down 5%, and the economic boom is better than ever. And when you look back about 4 years ago, when I first joined.
Secretary. Thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President. Which administration do you think you would have your administration based off of if elected? You have 30 seconds.
There's many things that I agree with a majority of the administrations, former President Whitey, personally, President Turnage himself, my father, gives me a lot of inspiration. But I think that I'd start up my own administration, a new Turnage administration, because there's a few things that I'd probably change. But other than that, I'd keep everything just about the same as the Turnage administration. One thing that I do want to bring back is the starting bonus.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President.
For,
we'll now enter into our debate period of 2 minutes. You may begin.
So as you've stated before, Mr. Vice President,
I believe
that you
that
wanted
the
to start
American
off
people
with the 5,000 starter bonus, but at the same time, you also agree that you don't want to be in the same status that your father created for you. And you understand that this 5% bonus is actually going to deplete the
I hope that
federal
you understand
budget, and that with your lower taxes policy, that you're not going to be able to afford these starter packs.
I hope you understand that.
That with this person, you're not going to be able to do that, as every single thing that you create has a balance.
If you lose interest on the resource world, I could go very well and pay for it myself for new companies to start out. And
well, as you just mentioned, the resource world
for the federal
government. The American people that haven't known, I've been spending $7.99 a month on the resource world for the American people. And like my counterpart
and
just
hardly
stated,
anyone uses it.
I've used it, and many of others have used it in order to put money in their pockets and make themselves richer in the process.
Yes. But hardly anyone uses it now due to the fact that recent people were kicked out. But you also have to take into consideration when you said that 5%, what was that? Again, the people without jobs rate went down 5%.
Last time I checked, Mr. Vice President, I believe your company is still inside the resource world. So are you saying your own company is failing under your own lead?
Well, I mean, like everyone knows previously, if you cannot have a company active as your president, you have to have a CEO running it. So currently that doesn't matter what my business is doing right now.
So are you basing yourself on your standards for the American people?
No.
Because I believe that Chris Blumen, a farmer inside the resource server, has also been able to farm and use many of his crops to produce his own personal gain.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I would like to move on to our next question, and we'll start with you, Mr. Secretary. Both of you have previously served in admins of your own, you being a former president in your own right, and the vice president being a former mayor in a local administration. What have you learned, and what will you do differently from your last administration? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Obviously, I mean, my last administration wasn't something to be a, role model. It wasn't something, honestly, I'm too proud of. But personally, I think, the learning experience is that you learn from your mistakes, and what I followed is that you can understand how people really are. It kind of gave me a little bit of a job description on how to hire people and where to go with the American people from there.
Thank you very much. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President. Both of you have previously served in admins of your own, your opponent being a former president of the United States, and you in your own right being the former mayor of New Haven. What have you learned, and what will you do differently from your past administration? You have 30 seconds.
I believe the one thing that I did need to learn, and I basically learned off of my past administration as mayor in New Haven, was more money budget spending. When I was mayor, the money budget went down a little faster than normal. I did have to ask for a grant from the federal government. Other than that, there was a middle class in New Haven. Work was being done. People were putting in the time to get work. That's also another reason as to how Mount Olympus was founded.
Thank you, Mr.
Due
Vice
to
President.
there actually being a middle class.
Thank you. The 2-minute debate period starts now.
I think what the Vice President fails to inform the American people is that with his budget, fastly decreasing when he was mayor, that the people actually left the city of New Haven to found that of Mount Olympus.
That is
That they
actually incorrect, Mr.
that the
London.
jobs and the wages that they were created inside New Haven, to the point where New Haven was a ghost town, and a majority of the
New Haven was
citizens
not a
in New
ghost
Haven
town.
went
There
to
were
Mount
many people
Olympus.
that lived in there. One
I
being
was one of
Randy
the few.
himself. Actually, you weren't even there, Mr. Munden. Previously, you were over there in Oceana, and then you switched over to Conan Exiles, and you were never here during your whole administration.
Well,
You
I think
sat
that's
here
where your
and
assumption
wrote,
goes wrong, Mr. Vice
no,
President, because
you came
my
over
address
here and
has always
wrote
been
a
in the same
rinky
spot,
dinky
and
tax
during your
plan, which
mayor
there's a book on the server if you want
during your
proof.
mayor election and during
During
your mayor
when I was mayor,
adminship,
there was a
that
middle class.
jobs were
People were working.
road jobs. A lot of people were going broke,
Yes, a lot of construction.
and there was no other
And
jobs than that.
you take a
You
look at what
created
happened.
jobs in
The
construction,
federal government
but
took
you
the
never
land,
failed to
a
create
majority of
business
those
jobs that
majority of
benefited the
those
American
roads
people.
all depleted and disappeared. So
And
now they're
that's why
creating new
the
roads.
American people that were inside your New Haven mayorship decided to build a road and found Mount Olympus instead of staying within your own city.
Actually, that's not true at all. Actually, the road was licensed from the president, actually, but I was to build it because he wanted a new city due to the time his current vice president, Patriot, owed.
And if I remember correctly, actually,
He
Rand Lee
built-
built that road from
Yes,
New Haven
Rand
to
Lee
Mount
did build
Olympus.
that road.
Which
Previously,
you just failed to
before
mention that.
No, listen.
And Rand Lee actually
Previously, Rand
provided
Lee
his
built
own
the road.
resources to
Yes,
make
he
that
did.
road.
Actually, he did not. The president spawned them in for him. But
Thank
the
you,
other
gentlemen.
fact is, the reason as to
Thank you,
why
gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Mount Olympus was created
Vice
is due
President.
to the
Mr.
old
Vice
vice
President.
president.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. I'd like to move on to our next category, that being the economy and taxes. We'll start with you, Mr. Vice President. What is your plan in regards to the tax system? You have 30 seconds.
I believe right now the tax system is broken. People are almost paying 40 cents per dollar, and that's the highest tax bracket that you can get into. I do not believe that that's okay, and that's on businesses as well. When I get into office, I plan on lowering the taxes down to 20% for both big businesses and small businesses. The federal tax, I believe, I should be 18%, not to mention that you also have to pay local tax on top of the federal tax.
Thank you, Mr.
And there's
Vice
other
President.
taxes to come that Mr. Munden wants to implement.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. What is your plan in regards to the tax system? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. My regards to the tax system is actually, I actually believe that it's doing a random, a rash amount of flourishment. As I stated before, on April 11th, we recorded the unemployment rate has gone down 5%. We've also recorded that by April 15th, that almost 30 new companies were created under this new tax system and economic system. My future plans is actually to add deductions and add ways that
Thank you, Mr.
American people
Secretary.
can save money.
Thank you. You both have 2 minutes to debate. You may begin.
I believe currently where we stand, Mr. Munden plans on putting more. What are they called again? Okay.
See, what I
Mr.
don't
Munden
think you
plans
understand,
on
Mr.
putting more band-aids
Vice
on an open
President,
wound.
is that
He wants to add
when you lower
more tax
taxes
deductions.
and you want to add more federal jobs, that the federal
But
budget
you
is
want
not
to
going to
add
be able
more
to
tax
afford
deductions,
these.
which
And by
take
doing
taxes
that,
out even more.
he's going to be taking away the budget that we give towards the cities of the American people. So if
That's
you
not
vote
taking
for my
out
counterpart
budget.
here, you'll be voting for the person that's going to take away the city's funding, and he's going to be ruining the economy in the next coming years.
No, Mr. Munden. I believe
And
that
as you mentioned
the
before,
money that is
you said
created and
40%
accumulated by the
per
American
dollar.
people, the money that is accumulated through the American people, a majority of it should go to them. You know why? Because they're hard workers and they earn their money.
And that's why
I believe that
63% of their money
I
actually
believe
gets
that
returned to
only
them at the end of the tax
You
season,
mean 67?
which is actually January 1st, in which you
Actually,
stated it's
no.
40 cents per dollar, which I don't know where you're getting 40 cents from. But
Yeah,
I
it's
believe
just
that
about
the
40
American
cents. It's
people will
37
actually be
cents
walking away
per
with more
dollar.
money than they would in the previous tax system, and before.
Now,
And it's
the
proved in
previous
this during
tax
this year
system was way
that
better
with
than the tax
statistics
system that you have
that the
already
people are
implemented.
flourishing, businesses are booming,
Before,
and the
businesses
American
only had
people
to
are
pay
putting more money to their pockets.
$3,700 each year. With your tax system, businesses are now paying 37% of their overall income to taxes. I just
Well,
do
think
not
about
believe
it
that's
as a
fair, Mr.
pendulum,
Munden. How? No,
Mr.
you think
Turnage.
about it, Mr. Munden.
If you think
How
if
are
the
they going
tax
to grow
system
their
as a
own business?
pendulum
How
and
are
you
they
want to
going to
swing the
grow a small
pendulum all the
business
way
or
to the
big
left,
business if
you're
they
not
don't
going to
have
be
the
able
money
to
to do
afford all
so?
the things that you want to do in your economic
You're
system.
right. They cannot afford anything if the taxes are so high on their business. Right now,
Thank you,
business
gentlemen.
taxes are off of the roof.
63%
That's
in
Thank you
their
why
very much,
pockets at the end
gentlemen.
of the year,
60.
sir.
No, it's
Gentlemen,
not.
gentlemen, thank you. Let us move on to our next question, starting with you, Mr. Secretary. How can you assure the American people that you have their best interests at heart when it comes to their finances and taxes? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. As statistics prove, and as my job, proceeds, that the American people are always at the best of heart. I wouldn't be doing anything to the American people that I would do to myself. The American people are always at best heart, and what we're actually working towards my presidential campaign and the future of my presidency, if I get elected, is that we're actually going to be lowering the taxes
Thank you,
by
Mr.
deductions.
Secretary. Thank you very much.
Putting a band-aid on an open wound.
Mr. Vice President, same question to you. How can you assure the American people that you have their best interests at heart when it comes to their finances and taxes? You have 30 seconds.
I can assure within my first 90 days as president that I will lower the taxes and get it passed by Congress. I believe that businesses should not be taxed 37% on top of local taxes, which, depending on what city you're on, which, Boston's kind of rigged with their 1% with Jake as their previous mayor. But I believe that I'm going to lower the taxes for federal taxes to 18% and small and big corporations down to 20%.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Vice
believe
President.
we need to give back to the American people.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. We'll now go into our 2-minute debate
Thank you,
period.
Carl.
You may start.
I think what the vice president fails to conclude to the American people is that actually the tax system is a progressive system. So the more money you make is actually the way that the tax system works. Not everybody's getting taxed 37%. This is just absurd. Of course, in the vice president's shoes, of course, on how much money he makes, he of course is sitting in the 37% tax though.
Well, I mean, take
So when you
someone
think
like
there,
Chris Booman.
if you
or
want to lower the
president, or me or
taxes,
you.
the American people, the tax system cannot be able to provide for that. So if you want to lower the taxes, you have to think about the economic catastrophe that you'll be creating for the American people in the future.
There's no economic
As you
catastrophe.
stated
It all
before
runs
in the
previously
previous
just like
debate
you have
that
it
you
set
wanted to
up.
create more federal funded jobs and you want to create more of a federal contacted economy.
I said
And
local
lately,
and federal. A majority
and
local.
lately with your tax system, I don't believe the federal budget's going to be able to sustain
Well,
that for
you
the coming
explain to me,
years.
Mr. Munden, what's going to make your tax system so much greater than what I have planned so that businesses can actually thrive and the citizens actually have money in their pocket?
The
Tell
difference
me that,
between
Mr.
my
Munden.
tax system and yours, as my tax system has created 30 businesses and it's also created 5% drop in unemployment.
30
It
businesses.
has also put more money into the pockets of the American people than any administration that's ever has. And it's lately been super
Good joke.
successful as, like I stated before, people are putting more money into their pockets now than ever.
You see that you stated that there's 30 plus more businesses that you created, but there's no actual records of any of those businesses that are actually still up.
And that's
Besides
where I
the
count you
businesses
wrong,
that
because
I
if you
own.
look at the business directory, that you'll be able to find all of these 30 businesses inside this business directory that you've actually failed to look inside of.
Are you talking about
you,
your
gentlemen.
businesses personally? Because
only have
both me
one
and your
business, Mr. Vice
businesses accumulate. So you don't have a shipping company.
Gentlemen, I'd
and
like
you
to move
also
on to our next
under
question.
one
a construction company.
That's under one
Gentlemen.
company, Mr. Vice President.
Gentlemen, thank you very
Sure.
much.
Not the business.
Gentlemen, please. We'll start this next question off with you, Mr. Vice President. How do you plan to grow the economy's wealth, like the previous administration, that being the Turnage administration. You have 30 seconds.
Personally, I think that the best way to grow the economy's wealth is through the gold exchange system. I believe that the more people that we have, the more work that can be done, the more people that can be on the resource world, and the more people that could actually go farm gold and stock up the Federal Reserve. Mr. Munden might say over here to keep 37% in taxes. Personally, I oppose to that, and I think that the American people should be paying 37% in taxes.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How do you plan to grow the economy's wealth like the previous administration? You have 30 seconds.
Well, as I've worked under the previous administration, and I've worked and created the economic system and the tax system, I believe that we need to focus on producing more companies and actually aiding the companies along. I believe that we need to actually lower the entry cost of business so that businesses can continue to grow and actually more people can actually start to make their own money. I believe that instead of federal contracted jobs, we should be putting and allowing the American people to make their own money and put their own money in their own pockets.
Thank you. Both of you have 2 minutes to debate. You may begin.
You say you want to help the American people and put money in their pockets, then why are you imposing this harsh 37% in taxes on a majority of American people?
See, Mr. Vice President, you keep on stating that there's the 37% tax bracket for everybody. And what you fail to neglect is that actually it's a progressive system. And that the person, it progresses as they make more money. So, for example, if someone makes 10 grand, they only pay roughly almost 10% or even lower than that. And with tax deductions and the standard tax deduction, which you've also failed to look at, you'll understand that if someone was only making that much money, that they would actually be paying zero taxes.
It's funny.
And actually, I believe that
if
you understood and you actually read our tax documents sheet,
I already
you would
read the
understand
tax
how it
document
works.
sheet. I already seen the deductions. You
yet
really
you
want to
state
help the
that
American
everyone has
people, and you say that you want to
37% as a
lower.
tax.
You want to say, I said a majority of people, not everyone. Now you're putting words in my
You
mouth.
stated
Number one,
that
don't do that. Number two, you say you want to help the
37%, everybody
American
has to pay
people,
37%,
but you want
Mr. Vice
to. A
President.
majority of people are paying 37%. Everyone who's working hard just about every day, they are.
But does that not prove that
It's
more people
broken.
are
It is a
making
broken
more than
tax system
500
right now.
grand per year than they usually were?
How does that make sense?
Does
If they
it
make
not prove
500 grand
that more
minus
people are making money
37%,
and
just
putting it
about
into their
40%,
pockets?
and that's including local taxes as well. So it's almost 40% of their money is gone. See, what you fail to comprehend
And
is that
60%
they
of
also
their
have
money is
to
still in
they
their
also have
pockets.
to impose
And that
local
40% is actually
taxes.
put into the budget so that can actually be used to put back inside their wallets. If we
Back
use that
inside.
40% and
But
they
how are
keep
you
their
going to help the local
60%, then
economy?
actually
How
they're
are you going to help
benefiting
the
from
local
the tax
economy if
system.
you want all the money going to the federal economy? That just don't make sense to me. If you take all
If
the
we
money for
boost the
federal,
federal
how are you going
budget,
to get more
we're
money for
able
locals
to produce
and local
more federal
businesses?
funding for cities and are able
You
to
say
put
you
more
want to
federal funding
lower.
Thank
You
you,
say you want to
into
gentlemen.
lower the
education
permit
and into
for
businesses to lower
Thank
the
you,
entry
gentlemen.
into business.
Thank you,
You say you
gentlemen.
want to lower it, but yet you're not even agreeing
Mr.
to
Vice
lower the
President.
taxes.
Mr. Vice President, I'd like to move on to our next question. May I remind both campaigns that your campaigns have both agreed to the Federal Election Commission rules for tonight's debate, so let's stick by them. This next question is for you, Mr. Secretary. Where do you want the U.S. economy to be in numeric value by the end of your presidency if elected? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I plan to utilize the gold system and a few other systems that I hope to create in order to put money into the American people's pockets, and also allow the federal budget to hopefully even get to maybe 50 million as a rough number. If we're able to get to that number with the gold standard and a few other policies I hope to create, perhaps the iron standard and so forth,
Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
that we're able to actually produce more money to the city's funding and so forth.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President, same question to you. Where do you want the U.S. economy to be in numeric value by the end of your presidency if elected? You have 30 seconds.
Can you repeat the question?
Where do you want the U.S. economy to be by the end of your presidency in numeric value if elected?
I want the United States and the numeric value to be standing strong. Not only that, I want, the economy to be self-sufficient, and we have a good system set up and in play. I believe, the American people should have money in their pockets instead of it being taken out like my opponent imposes. But I yield my time.
Your 2-minute debate period starts now.
I think what you fail to understand, Mr. Vice President, is that if you want to continue to keep the federal budget at where it's at, if you lower the government's tax bracket system, how are you able to be able to sustain the amount of money that's actually in the federal government
If I lower,
and actually are able to
if I
not
lower
lower
the
any
system,
other
it helps out
aids that
the
we're
local
using for the
businesses
American
and the
people?
local economy.
But
Not
what you fail to
everything's just
understand
not
that
everything's
if you
just
lower
about
the
the
federal
federal
budget,
government, even though it's a
that the
big
federal budget
important
will not
part
be able to
of the
sustain
United
aid to these
States.
cities and not able to sustain aid to these businesses
Federal
and so
government.
forth that we are creating.
You also have to think, if we lower down the tax prices, okay, the American people have more money in their pocket. There's a possibility, since my plan, we plan on having an economic boom and also a citizenship boom from
But how are you going to
recruitment.
create an
More
economic
people,
boom
more
if
people
people
can get
are in a
brought into the
inflation
United States.
of an economy
Listen,
and are
more
in a
people can
financial
get into the
crisis
United
of
States,
the federal budget and a
and
possible
if
government
the
shutdown in
taxes
your
are
presidency?
lowered, local businesses, small and big businesses, can have more employees if the
How will
taxes
they
are
be?
lowered, because they have more money in their pocket. That means boosting local jobs. Not only that, but it also
You say
helps out the
local
local
jobs, but you
economy.
also understand that if you cut these taxes, the government's not going to be able to fund the actual local cities. So that's going to cut
The
away all the
government
federal
will.
jobs that you hope to
There will
create.
be money
The
flowing in the
policemen are going to
cities.
be
That's
undercut.
the whole point.
The mayors are
Police
going
are
to be
not going to be
undercut.
undercut. The mayors are not
Construction
going to
for
be
the
undercut
cities are going to
either.
be undercut, and your
Do you realize that?
economy will
Do you
overall
realize
fail.
that if the taxes are lowered, it helps boost more jobs, get more people in. Not
Well,
only
what you
that,
understand,
what you're
Mr.
imposing
Vice
is not
President, is
true at
that the
all,
economy
Mr.
is
Munden.
Thank you,
like a
gentlemen.
balance. If you tip the balance too far to the left,
Thank you
you'll
very
cause
much,
a
gentlemen.
catastrophe.
Thank you very much. Let us move on to our next category, that being immigration. We'll start with you, Mr. Vice President. How do you plan to keep America out of an immigration crisis at the Discord border? You have 30 seconds.
Well, previously, I made a mistake earlier this year. Before I was an immigration officer on PlayStation and stuff like that for the community, I was not too well confronted with Discord and how it worked. But how I plan to neutralize the threats is I believe that if they're a well-known terrorist or enemy, they should be kicked right away, and then severe background checks should be done on them as well. If they're on Xbox, get the Xbox app,
Thank you,
look
Mr.
into their
Vice President.
account.
Thank you
They're
very
on
much.
PlayStation.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How do you plan to keep America out of an immigration crisis at the Discord border? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. As a person that's currently in charge of the immigration process, I hold firm and stand where the process holds and in the security. I believe that thorough background checks are to be a must, and that no person is going to be allowed into this nation that could possibly cause a threat. Unlike my counterpart, he has also failed to check a few of these people on that mistake of his. He was allowing terrorists and possible enemies into the state. I yield
Thank
my
you
time.
very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. You may now begin with your 2-minute debate period.
I believe that, like Mr. Munden and myself, I believe that we have both made mistakes due to immigration and different processes like that, and even some bigger mistakes, but I feel that once you make the mistake, you learn after it. I believe that you gain wisdom and knowledge after you made a mistake, and you fully understand more of what happened and how to better yourself after it.
What I don't think the vice president understands is that he says that he wants to hold a strong and a firm border around our country. And at the time that he was an immigration officer, he failed to do several background checks on a few citizens that were trying to join. And actually, we found that these citizens had many terrorists on their friends list and could also be possible threats to the nation. And at
Yeah,
that
you
moment,
mean
he was
one
moved
person.
and removed from the immigration
Hey,
officer chat, and he was no longer able to ever be an immigration officer ever again at that moment of time.
see, I just don't understand how the president has so much faith in you, Mr. London, when you sold out the United States for what, $70 that you didn't even get? That just doesn't make sense to me.
See, what I don't think you
Like I
understand, Mr.
said,
Vice
like I
President,
said
is the law is the
previously,
law.
everyone
If they
learns.
fail a
I
background
mean,
check,
if
whether
the
they're your
law's the
sister, your
law, then
brother,
you
your
shouldn't be
father,
here right
your
now.
mother,
If it wasn't for the president currently, you shouldn't, honestly, if the law's the law, you shouldn't be here right now. You kicked over 600 members
and if
in
that
the
was the case,
community.
wouldn't you think that starting a
That
civil
was
war with
that
a
was
man named Austin
literally
would be in your favor?
with a man named Austin. That dude was your vice president.
Whom I've
You're the
elected,
one. You're
that the people
you're the
elected,
one who
and that
no
my
no not the
financial
people
and that
elected
my
that you
presidential
wanted.
advisors aided to
That
me to
you
make that
wanted.
decision.
No, you wanted that vice president, and
And
you want
you
to
Thank you,
come
went
over
gentlemen.
here and
beside
say
him,
that
and you
if I
supported
went
him
beside
in
Thank
him,
you,
his
I would
gentlemen.
not be
choice
here right now.
to be in the Civil
Thank
If
you,
War.
I
gentlemen.
went beside him, I would not be here right now.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. Let us move on to our next question. We'll start with you, Mr. Secretary. How do you plan to better the immigration process and systems that are currently at place? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think what a possibility that is going on right now is the immigration process is a slow process, and I think it's important that not only do we try to speed up the process, but I believe that we need to do it right. So no matter what it takes, I believe that it needs to be done right. And so hopefully I can be looking into future immigration officers or possible ways that we can work with people trying to join in to speed up the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President. How do you plan to better the immigration processes and systems that are currently at place? You have 30 seconds.
I believe where they stand are good. I mean, there's not much more that we can do to ensure the security. I mean, unless we had like some sort of hackers or military grade equipment in real life to check their IPs and get their addresses and stuff like that. But I just believe that that's just completely wrong and we shouldn't do that. That's also quite illegal. So I believe that where we stand right now in the immigration process is good. I believe that, we,
Thank you,
like
Mr. Vice
Mr. Munson
President.
said, we do need more people to speed up the process, but
Thank you very
we
much.
also need trustworthy people.
The 2-minute debate period begins now.
I yield my time.
I think the vice president speaks on good terms there, but I do believe that he's correct that when we look into adding more immigration officers, it's going to be people that we can trust and have respective backgrounds. Because at the choice at the end of the day, that these people are the people that are going to stand guardians at the wall and guardians at the borders, and we need to make sure that these people are protected so that the American people and the atmosphere that they have created is safe,
And also
secure,
that they know what they're doing.
and is going to be continued on to the bright path that is created so far. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to our final question for this topic before we move on to our 5-minute recess. We'll start with you, Mr. Vice President. How can you guarantee that terrorists won't get through the border? You have 30 seconds.
Well, just like everyone knows, it's pretty simple to go create another account, so there's not 100% a guarantee that a terrorist is not going to come into the group or, there'd be a spy or someone, even if it's, under someone that ordered it. I mean, like I said, we don't have equipment or gear like military equipment to go and do certain things and see where people live and different things like that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Same question to you,
so we
Mr.
wouldn't know.
Secretary. How can you guarantee terrorists won't get through the border? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson, and I think it's a relatively simple answer. Through the thorough research that I and the President have done so far, there's countless ways that we can actually measure to see if someone created such false accounts and such like that. when you look at the Discord policy, you can see when someone's created an account. You can also look at how new and the trophies, how many trophies an account has. So there's countless ways to make sure that the American
Thank you,
people will
Mr.
never have to deal
Secretary.
with a terrorist.
Your 2-minute debate period begins now.
Well, like Mr. Munden said, how, there's all these ways that you can make sure that terrorists and, you can see when different accounts are created. That doesn't always guarantee that there's, that doesn't always guarantee that there could be a mole in the community or a spy or, something like that. Previously, like what we've seen with TP recently, he was close to us, fooled us. We've seen it previous and past administrations. So personally, I personally do not think that there's any guarantee 100% that people like a terrorist or something like that, could be in here and could not be in here at the same time. There's always that one risk and possibility, even if it was just someone that we didn't recently met, even if they were, been in here previously, they could be working for someone and we could slip right underneath our fingertips.
I think, like you said, Mr. Vice President, there's a lot of ways that, of course, as I've stated recently before, the best thing that we can do is just do our best. At the end of the day, the people in the immigration process, we're all human. We make mistakes, and we can't make sure and we can't account that, people will get corrupted within the community. Terrorists might reach out to them and corrupt them from the inside.
Yeah,
Of
kind of
course,
like
we can do our
the
best.
mafia situation we seen earlier this year.
Indeed. So, of course, we can always look into and we can always, run our investigations and do our background checks as best as we can. But at the end of the day, like I said before, we can only do what we can. And I think that's what we're doing. And I think that's what Homeland Security is doing really well. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that being said, we'll now move into our 5-minute recess period. For those watching at home, thank you for watching. We hope you're currently enjoying. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to tonight's second presidential debate right here in Boston, Massachusetts. Let's go right back into our next category, which is new cities and states. We'll start with you, Mr. Secretary. How can you ensure that new cities and states don't use the union for their own personal gain? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think the best way to make sure that the best interest is kept into the American people's hearts is that we look at who they're really about. Obviously, when we look at these times and we go towards the visits, we make sure that we're picking a community that can really benefit us and overall will add to the atmosphere that the American people have already created. And I think that's what makes it important to make sure that these communities don't join us that will possibly leech and be parasitical off of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President. How can you ensure that new cities and states don't use the union for their own personal gain? You have 30 seconds.
Well, like Mr. Munden said, and I agree, is that we should find the people that best suit America and not the other way around, that we suit them. I believe that we should definitely be very picky on who we allow to come join us in cities. We also have to kind of monitor their behavior in the ways that they act. I also believe that it is imperative that their people get along with our people as well.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Let us now move into our 2-minute debate period. You may begin.
Well, like the Vice President has said, we both agree to the terms that, the best way to, take care of the American people is to make sure that when we take these visits that these people have the best interest in our hearts. The American people and the many people that I've met and I've talked with and I've even considered family of my own, I think they can all agree that, we don't want anyone to enter our atmosphere that's going to obviously destroy it. We've had people like Black-Hearted Boy that came in. He didn't really do much for our union. and we've had countless others like Newark, as the vice president stated before, and I think in the previous debate. That they joined the union and they were leechers. They didn't benefit offered to our citizens, and I think that's what makes this that's what makes it the most crucial, is that when you're looking at these possibilities and these possible candidates to the union, that people are taken to the best interest, and so that we can figure it out.
Hmm.
I yield my time, by the way. Thank you.
I believe that the American people should have full choice on who we should add, and it should be their decision, not only just ours. I yield my time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move into our next question, starting with you, Mr. Vice President. How are you going to make sure that new cities and states comply with their federal contracts? You have 30 seconds.
Well, first off, if they don't comply with their federal contracts, first things first, denounce the federal funding. They don't need that funding if they ain't gonna work with what we gave them on the contract, obviously. And if it needs to come up to another step, possibly not going to be a part of the union at all. Both me and my father, we have a thing, we wear a harness on our sleeve, and then there's some aspects when we're just like, nope, they have to get the boot.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
If they don't want to comply.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How are you going to make sure that new cities and states comply with their federal contracts?
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. As my counterpart, candidate. But as he stated before, I mean, the big thing is we need to make sure that they're following to our rules and our policies. We're not going to ask who's going to work it out. We're going to get it done. The American people are the best interests and are the things that we focus on. And if these people don't want to comply, well then, I think as the professional manner, we're going to point them to the door. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Secretary. You. The 2-minute debate period begins now. Let me begin.
I believe that it's in the American people's interest and best interest to get along with all states and cities a part of the union. I believe that it should be their full choice, and the American people should have a say in majority of the conflicts and compromises that are came up with. I'm one of the people that do not like to hold too much information from the American people. I like to tell people outright how it is. I'm very blunt, but other than that, I agree exactly with what Mr. Munden said. And,
Yeah, like you said, you got to believe in
harsh on 'em.
transparency. And I think transparency is the biggest thing that you have to do to the American people. That's why, I believe in press conferences and town halls to keep the American people updated. But in regards to this situation, I mean, we're not going to sit here and say, who's going to work it out. We're going to sit down. We're going to, sit down in our chairs, and we're gonna get it done. Because at the end of the day, it's our job and our duty to the American people to get things done for them, by them, and with them. Thank you. I yield my time.
Do you yield your time, Mr. Vice President?
I'll yield this time for him.
Thank you. Thank you. Let us move on to our next question, starting with you, Mr. Secretary. How many new cities/states do you plan on adding to the union during your presidency if elected? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. In my approach and to my presidency, I plan to add a lot more cities and possible allyships to the union. I think it's best heart that, I think that the flourishment and the possible progress that the American people are making, that I believe I want to take more people under our wing, and I want to take them under the experience that, the American people have created so far. And I believe that it's going to be at the best interest of the American people, and if they're suited for us and they're willing to, we'll be more than happy.
Thank you. Mr. Vice President, same question to you. How many new cities and states do you plan on adding to the union during your presidency if elected?
Personally, I cannot answer that question. It also has to, fit in with the federal budget that we have imposed and that's current right now. So personally, I do not know yet. Obviously, I'm all for expansion. I'm all for expanding the United States, but what both me and Mr. Munden can agree on is, they have to be suited properly and, carry themselves in a certain manner for them to even get a chance to be in the United States, because we're not just going to allow
Thank you, Mr.
any
Vice President.
foreigner to come into the United States.
Thank you. Your 2-minute debate period starts now.
Yes, and I think that's why it's most important that the current progression that we're making in the economy, that it's actually going to be possible for this this rapid expansion. Just like our founding fathers before us, I believe that we should try to shoot for manifest destiny. We should get more people around our cities and more people around in our economy, and I think that's going to be most fruitful if we look at the right candidates and we see what's going to be the best suited for the American people. I yield my time.
I agree with what Mr. Munden said. The rapid expansion of the economy, I mean, personally, there's, tax system I don't agree with, but besides the other point, I do believe that we should grow America and get more people in here. And
I think what you don't understand, Mr. Vice President, is that actually under your new tax system that your expansion would actually never happen. And I want you to know that.
It would easily happen.
Well, because if you're going to cut federal funds, then actually the federal budget will never be able to afford to expand these new cities. And that's what you lack to understand. Thank you, and I'll yield this time for him.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now move on to our final category, that being education. We'll start with you, Mr. Vice President. What is your plan in regards to education?
Did you give me the 30-second timer already?
Yes.
Okay. My plans for education is to lower the cost for certain classes, because I do not believe you should be paying $15,000 per one class that lasts like a week, maybe over a week. There's a lot of work to that process, and I also think that, that's a little too much money for one course.
Thank you. Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. What is your plan in regards to education?
I think personally my plan for education is I want to actually foundate more schools around the cities of the United States and offer more classes so that the American people can educate themselves to flourish them and make more money and put them into their pockets. I think at the current rate, I mean, we only have one class available at the moment. It is a little pricey, so I plan to put a little bit of the federal budget into education and some other policies so that people can educate themselves and get to be better American people. Thank you, Mr.
Secretary. The 2-minute debate period begins now.
I believe it is in the American people's best interest, and I know that there's a lot of people that like to perceive a career and being a lawyer and a judge and different stuff like that, the current classes that we have right now. And, I currently, or not currently, but previously was in that class as well as Mr. Munden over here. And, it was a bit pricey, like $15,000. And so I believe that, like Mr. Munden said, increase some funding over in that department of education. And I also believe that the overall cost for those classes should be lowered.
And I agree. My whole campaign and progression of my processes towards the presidential election is that I want to create more opportunities to the people, and I think that's a big thing in education. As if the American people are aware and they understand how things work, that they're able to better themselves and able to create more revenue for themselves, and are able to fulfill more jobs into the government. They're able to fulfill more jobs in their economy, and they're overall going to be higher class citizens and better off people, I believe. Thank you. And I think we'll yield to both of our times. Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on to our next question. Starting with you, Mr. Secretary. How do you plan on getting Americans educated so they can get higher paying jobs? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. Obviously, at the current rate of the education system, we only have a lawyer class. So, it's more of a criminal justice class, so they can become lawyers, attorneys, judges. But what I actually plan is to, fund more schools and get more classes going so that people can become entrepreneurs, and it's just going to be, overall better for them as they can make more money for themselves. As nothing's better than a personal business that can make themselves their own money.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Vice President, same question to you. How do you plan on getting Americans educated so they can get higher paying jobs? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I believe that it is a necessity that the American people get educated and fill different roles in the United States. I mean, possibly, I believe that with my my opposition for the taxes, and if everything's going well, who knows, my company might even pitch in and give a donation to the school so people can get free education, get educated for free. Not only that, is possibly there might be a short period in time where if the federal government has enough money, might do a donation to schools, and there could possibly be a moment in time where there is some free education.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The 2-minute debate period starts now.
I think, a lot of good words are said by my opposing candidate, but I think the problem that still stands is, he keeps on talking about this tax system, but with lower taxes and lower ways that the federal budget's actually going to be stabilizing, that the government's not going to be able to afford these things, especially a free education system. The economy wouldn't be able to sustain such. Free classes would soon fail, the economy would soon fail, and then next thing you know, we're going to actually be paying more out of our own pockets to fulfill these, these band-aids that the vice president's going to shoot.
Like I've already stated, that would be a period in time if there was leftover money in the federal budget. I think that the American people come first.
How you're going to get that money? How are you going to fulfill?
If it's leftover in the federal budget, like I said just now stated, there's leftover money. I believe it's
federal budget. How are you going to get more money into the federal budget?
It's a donation.
With your tax system?
Gold exchange system, like you keep stating over and over, Mr. Money.
The gold exchange system is a balance system. If you were to edit it in any sort of way, you'd be creating an inflation economy, which would also hurt the economy in many sorts of
There's no need to edit the gold exchange system. It's perfectly fine right now.
So what
American
other ways
people
would you be able
come
to
first,
pay back the federal budget?
Like I said, they will get it through the taxes that are accumulated and also the gold exchange system. Possibly
taxes that are accumulated. If you're talking about your 18%,
possibly other ways as well. I'm not sure of what yet.
Unsure of what's yet. You're unsure about what your tax policies are going to do for the American people.
No, I'm unsure about how I'm going to accumulate the money that you keep stating.
So you're stating that
there will
you're not going to be able to pay
idea.
back the federal budget.
No. All the money will be paid back in the federal budget through the gold exchange system.
But you still state not to answer the question on how you're going to do that.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
I kept telling you the gold exchange system.
Gentlemen,
do you not listen?
Thank you very much, gentlemen. This next question is for you. We're going to do the last two questions in this category a little differently, so that we can get some civilian questions in as well, since we do have time. So how these last two questions under the education category will work, you both will have 30 seconds to give your answer, and after each of you give your answers, we will move on to the next question without a debate period. We'll start with you, Mr. Secretary. There's currently one school in the entire nation, and it is run down and not operational. What is your solution? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think with the economic progress and what the gold exchange system and actually the taxes are doing for the federal budget, that the federal budget will be in a sustained increase for the rest of the future years, and I think we'll be able to actually fund and redo this school and also build many other schools in all the other cities. I know that Boston plans to build, I think, 2 or 3 universities here. And I'm hoping that in doing so that we'll allow people to fulfill their American dream.
Same question to you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Vice President. There's currently one school in the entire nation, and it is run down and not operational. What is your solution? You have 30 seconds.
My solution, personally, I think that the federal budget is doing well and they should have some extra money to spare. I believe that if it's old and run down, I believe we should just knock it down, build a new school, possibly even 2 new schools on both sides of town in New Haven. And if that is not so, that the federal government so does not have the money, I believe that I might have to help pay with it out of pocket.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We'll start off the next question with you as well. How do you plan to make school affordable for the less fortunate? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I believe in communities such as, Hispanic and Black and some other, like, white communities, poor communities and stuff like that. They need, help. I do not believe that they, should be overly extremely taxed, like with this 36% that Mr. Munnin opposes to. I believe that they should get treated fairly and have the same opportunities as everyone else. With that being said, I believe that, like I stated before, there might be a possibility
Mr.
at
Vice
free
President.
classes and different scholarships for
much.
different levels of school.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. How do you plan to make school affordable for the less fortunate? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think with the progress, of course, that like I've said we are doing, and the tax system that is progressive and is not going to overtax the less fortunate, I do plan to produce and some aids to
Mr.
the
Vice President.
American people that are going to allow them to take such classes so that more people can become entrepreneurs and we can work it out. And I think, under my opponent's tax system, who's going to work it out? I believe that under my campaign, we will work it out.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. This next question will start with you. This is a civilian question. This question actually does not come from one of our civilians, but comes from a different state that is currently enemies of the United States of America.
What?
The leader of this state asked, "Do you think you'll have the same authority and power as President Turnage did? And if so, why?" You have 30 seconds.
Well, like everyone else says, personally about me, my father wears his heart on his sleeve, and a lot of people like to say that I'm a lot more blunt than my father. And, I do not believe, I believe in second chances, but on certain actions that are taken, I do not believe so. So I believe if I'm not like my father, I'd probably be more strict than my father and have a lot more security protocols and definitely
Thank you,
want the
Mr.
military
Vice
back
President.
up into play.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Secretary. Do you think you'll have the same authority and power as President Turnage did if elected president? You have 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Dickinson. I think through the president and Mr. Turnage that I've even been able to pick up on a few things that he's taught me throughout the years. And I think the big thing is the big stick policy. We're not going to take nonsense from nobody, and definitely we're not going to take it. Of course, and the big thing is that I know that when we become, either one of us become president, that the enemies are going to be trying to make the American people a target. And that's
Thank you,
why
Mr.
I
Secretary.
plan to increase security and get the military stronger
Thank you.
and as it ever was.
We'll begin our 2-minute debate period now.
Mr. Munnin, you claim you want to increase the military and make it better than it ever was. But the last time that we've had training, I was the only one who showed up and actually hosted it. You haven't been there for over a month now. So I see the same process repeating since the same debate, where you think that I'm going to come over and try and do your job, but that's not the case currently.
I think what you fail to understand is that actually when I run the trainings, people actually show up because they have respect for me, and I give them time in advance to know that when these trainings are going to be hosted, and I have a tendency of more attendance to these people that come to my trainings.
Yes, I have
currently, I've actually
all of them.
training planned actually tomorrow. My
well, we'll see
standard
if that
protocols continue, and I think that I'm doing a great job. I've seen progression in a lot of our troops, and I'm doing a fantastic job at leading them. And unlike you,
you
I haven't
trained
had
a terrorist
people
that just recently left. Okay.
well, under your shoes that you've actually trained him as well. So your own fact, you just contradicted yourself.
You're the one.
But at the end of the day,
technically
our job is to boost all of our troops so that in the face that any enemy or any threat comes near us, that they will be ready and they'll be sure of it. And I can say that through my progression and my techniques as Secretary of Defense and leader of the military, that these people are actually making progression.
You say all these things, but they
complain
when,
for example, if you look at Planet Amazing, when he first started, he was a better,
war can be imminent
he was a rough
at any
shooter,
second, and they need to be
but
prepared
at the end of the day,
to be called at war.
He became a better shooter,
so
and a lot of, like other soldiers, they become better with under my
claim to be over
leadership.
Here and say that
as I've stated before,
notice,
the military has always been
invalid.
Gentlemen, thank you.
That makes no sense at all.
Thank you,
The
gentlemen.
military should be ready at all times
Let
and
us
at all
move on
costs.
to our next question. Mr. Vice President, please. Mr. Secretary, we'll start with you. This question comes from DK_Grizzly Bear. He says, what do you plan to do differently than President Turnage? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I would like to thank Mr. DK for his question, and I think a big thing that actually, there's a few different policies that I want to add. Of course, I still want to edit the tax system, the economy plan, but overall, I want to make sure that the American people, fulfill and getting, monies back into their pockets. They become entrepreneurs themselves. And I want to make sure that through progress and things that I, plan to bring forth in my presidency, that these things will occur.
Thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President, from Mr. DK of Mount Olympus. What do you plan to do differently than President Turnage? You have 30 seconds.
First things first is obviously lower the taxes really lower than what President Turnage has approved from Mr. London. Second thing that I want to do, Mr. DK, and thank you for the question, by the way, is build the military back up. I know you were previously in the military before, and actually make it proper, because a job worth doing is a job worth doing right. I also want to spend more time with the American people, because typically I believe that President Turnage, he's married to his work,
Thank you, Mr.
and he don't
Secretary.
really have too much time for all of the American people to individually hang out with them.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We'll move on to our next question, starting with you. Actually, I'm sorry about that. We'll move into our 2-minute debate period. You may begin.
I think, Mr. DK, that the Vice President fails to inform you is that, under his tax system that, a lot of things won't be happening for you. The tax system will be lowered, but at the end of the day,
DK,
the local funding is going to be lowered.
Mr. Munden, what he's trying
as he
to tell
stated
you
earlier
here
today,
is
that with his new job, he
he's
actually
trying
doesn't
to
have
keep the
time for you.
taxes high on you,
And
the
that's
other
what I
American
think is
people
that when he's talking
wants to
about
keep
time
the
worth,
taxes high.
that he's not going to be
I
around
want
for
to
you that
lower
much.
taxes so
I'm
that
on
the
every
American
single
people
day,
can actually flourish
and I've been
and
there
have
for the
extra
American
money
people
to
since
spend
day
and
one.
start businesses and hire new
And
employees.
if you personally ever have
I
any
want to make it
questions for me in my
beneficial for
campaign,
all of the
I'm pleased to
American
take any
people.
further questions to you,
Not
Mr.
just
DK.
one person
Thank
or
you.
rich people or one individual. I want to make it fair for all of the American people. That still is not counting that, you got your federal taxes on top of local taxes where you live, and, that's quite a bit.
I mean, you got $1 million, you look at the federal and local taxes, you're paying, say you made $1 million or even 500,000.
Well, I think it's rough,
You
Mr.
split
Vice
that by
President, for a
about
man that has as much
40%,
money as you
that's
do to talk on
400,000.
behalf of a man that doesn't have as much.
Well, I mean, if you've not previously
Who are you
known,
to say
Mr.
that with
London,
your
I've given out
candidacy, that even
houses
with
to
your
the
tax
American
system,
people. I've
that
given
you're
out
even be able
shops
to
to the
afford for
American
this man?
people. I've even given money out to the American people, so I actually do play my part. Unlike you, Mr. London, you'd rather start a business and hog it all for yourself when I try to
And you would
benefit the
rather use
American
your personal
people.
pocket to aid your tax system that's going to ultimately fail so that you can provide
I
for Mr.
mean,
DK, that you're going to be able
if I have
to
to go into my
yourself
own
into debt.
pocket, it's not going to be for the tax system, it's going to be for the American people. I mean, I hope you clearly would understand that as well. If the American people needed something and
gentlemen.
the federal government did not have the money for it, I mean,
Thank
I'd
you.
pay for it out of pocket.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Vice
yet you
That's
still
President.
just
don't understand that.
that's how devoted I am to
Thank
this
you.
country.
Thank you.
I've been
Let
giving
us
away
move on to
many
our final
things,
question, please.
houses,
Mr.
businesses,
Vice
even
President.
money to the American
Mr.
people.
Vice President, your campaign has agreed to the Federal Election Commission debate rules. Please follow by our guidelines. Thank you. We'll now move into our final question for tonight's debate. And this question comes from the one, the only, Mr. Planet, the mayor of New Haven. He asked, what do you think President Turnage did wrong during his terms in office? We'll start with you, Mr. Secretary. You have 30 seconds.
I mean, personally, I think, the president did an overall great job. We've been living in an economic boom. The citizens have been having, more jobs and more unemployment than ever. Personally, I think maybe we could have improved on was, a little bit more, transparency with the people, as we've been trying to do lately, and what we've done with our press conference and our previous couple days ago. And I think that's probably something that, it needs to be worked on, and that's something I'm going to definitely add to my presidency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Same question to you, Mr. Vice President, coming from Planet 043 Amazing, the mayor of New Haven. He asks, what do you think President Turnage did wrong during his terms in office as President of the United States? You have 30 seconds.
Personally, I believe that President Turnage has really done an overall good job on his campaign, and even before that, he was, carrying Mr. Munden's campaign, because I've been here since that time, right by his side. There was once a time when the president told me during the Civil War, you're either with me or against me, and obviously I was with him. I standed right by his side ever since. I believe that overall, his whole presidency, honestly, there's not much I would really change about it. I think he done an overall great job presenting himself, and
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We'll now move into our final debate period of tonight before our closing statements. You may begin.
I believe that the president currently, as we all know him and love him, it's going to be a very sad and probably tragic day when he leaves office in January. I know I'm going to be sad. He's not going to be here anymore, He's my inspiration and a big role model to me. It's going to be a sad day not only for me, but the whole community. And I believe that his legacy will definitely live on and prevail. The first and sixth president of the United States, probably possibly the best president we ever had. Hopefully more years to come with the United States.
I think the best thing that, like he said, the president's done a great job. He's led this community for a long time, and but I think personally the thing that's best is that actually he's not going to be there to save my counterparts, but when he makes mistakes in possible future office appearances. My candidate, my counterpart likes to, like he said before, he likes to witness things. He's not a doer. He likes to sit back and he likes to watch things happen rather than be there and focus on the things that need to be done at hand. And I think for the American people, if you want to have a candidate that's
so
actually
that,
going to
that
do
don't make
things for the
sense to
people
me.
and make progress in the first 90 days and the things
Bro.
that you're going to want to see in the future.
Mr. Monin, the
Then
only thing
obviously
you're
that
going to
you
do
can't
for the
choose from my
first 90
counterpart.
days is sit there and eat a bag of potato chips. Stop playing.
My
But
father once told
the
me that
first
there's
thing
people
that
called
I'm going to
doers
do within the
and there's
90 days
followers.
is
And I
fix
believe
the tax system,
my Mr. Vice
fix the
President
schooling system,
is a
fix the
follower.
military,
And I
due to
think
the
after
fact
his
that
father
Mr.
leaves, he's
London
going to be in a straight
lacks the
dismay that he's
intellect
not going to be able
of running a
to
proper
follow
military.
and do things that he's supposed to do in office,
You
as
know,
he's
that's
countlessly
pretty
done as
hurtful,
vice presidents.
Mr. Instinctive. That's very disrespectful, especially on the president's part. You think that the president saves my rear end every time? That's for sure not the case, Mr. Instinctive, and
I think for the
I
how many
take that
times
as
that he's
major
asked you to do
disrespect.
things, he wouldn't be as much stress as he would, and he wouldn't be
I
considering
mean,
all
a
the things
majority
about
of the
him
things that
retiring
he
early
asked me to do have gotten done.
in about 2 weeks.
I mean, you sit there and watch, what is it, like 5-hour videos for how long? A long while, and build the stuff that he asked? Yeah, I've done it all. I've been there. You haven't. I mean,
The
during
other
the
thing
time
that
of
the
your
vice president
presidency,
doesn't
you weren't
understand is
here.
that he doesn't do the things that the
I've
president tells
been
him to
here.
do. And if it
I've
was,
seen.
the
You say
president
I
wouldn't be in a
don't do what
situation
the
where he would be
president
in so
tells
much
me to do,
stress.
but look at yourself. You
The
can't even
vice
host a
president
proper military
sits and
training. You're
waits
not even
2
here to
weeks or
do your
even more
job.
to get things done. If you want a man that gets things done, then
I
you can
get
vote for
things
me.
done right away. I do not know what you're talking about, Mr.
Thank you,
Instinctive.
gentlemen.
And speaking of getting things done right
Thank you.
away, I yield his time for him, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll now
I
move
yield
into
my
our
time.
closing statement period, where each candidate will have uninterrupted time, 2 minutes each, to give their closing statements to the American people of why they should be the next Commander-in-Chief. Mr. Vice President, we'll start with you. Your 2 minutes begins now.
First off, I want to thank all of the American people at home and abroad for coming and witnessing this debate tonight. I'd also like to thank Mr. Carl for hosting this event in the Federal Election Committee. I'd also like to thank Mr. Instinctive over here for being a good opponent in tonight's debate. I'd also like to thank TD Gardens for having us in this amazing stadium right here. But now, cutting to the main point, as all you guys know and all you guys can see, Mr. Munden has already had his chance at being president and he blew it. We do not need another failure of a Munden campaign. We need a change for the better of this great nation. We do not need a president that would sell out his country for $70. I will leave that choice up to you, the American people, if you really want to change. It will be up to you to decide if you want the country to prevail or fall. Every person in the United States is important, and it is important that you all vote. Zach Turnage, 2021. I yield my time.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Same question. Well, sorry, not a question, but closing statements for you as well, Mr. Secretary. You have 2 minutes.
Carl, Mr. Vice President, and the folks here in Boston, as well as those joining us from across the country and around the world. I'm optimistic about the future, and I think it's possible for America to flourish further, as you have heard from the last debate and tonight. My importance to the American people is to create opportunities for everyone to fulfill the American dream. By introducing more deductions and a push to the stronghold of business, I believe we can accomplish that. Unlike my counterpart, as he has had the chance to be Speaker of the House and has failed to neglect and to contact the Congress, he states that I'm putting a Band-Aid on a bullet when he's the one who took a shot at us. I want to make sure that the American continues to grow. Stores for more employees, more people to join our union, and to go onto our wing of democracy. with many town halls and press conferences that I will hold in the future. If you elect me, I will work for you. Let's make together and guide America down the light that it's on, and the progress that we are currently making. I find it fruitful for the American people that if you elect me, that I will make sure that this witness here, as my counterpart, will make sure to do his job if he chooses to be under my campaign and under my presidency. We need to get things done, the American people. And if you want a man that gets things done, then vote for me. Thank you. And thank you for everyone watching, and have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you to the Vice President and to the Secretary of Defense and Treasury for being here tonight and participating in the second official presidential debate. This wraps up our second presidential debate. I'm your moderator, Carl Dickinson, and we'll see you next time for our final debate in Washington, D.C. Good night, America. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come for this interview. What's your name?
Kukui?
Nice to meet you, Kikui. Is this your first time in Boston?
No, not my first time.
All right, well, glad to see you. Tell us, what did you think about the presidential debate?
Damn, that shit got heated real quick. Like, it was smart out smooth, but I think, to be honest with you, with me, I think Mark got that shit in lock, to be honest with you. Like, he was very smooth what he was talking about. Zach got some good points too, but I'm like leaning over to Mark's side a little bit more. Cause he ain't take no shit, he ain't give a fuck. Like, he literally got straight to the point, ain't try to make no jokes, ain't try to do shit. Like, talking about like, well, like eat a bag of potato chips? Nah, he ain't do that shit. He put out fucking bad signs of him. He did everything, get that shit on lock. So yeah, like, you know, I think he got that shit, you know.
So it's pretty much safe to say that if the election was tomorrow, the person you'd be voting for is Secretary Mark Money.
Got it.
Well, thank you for your time. We hope to see you at the next debate in Washington, D.C. We hope you have a great night. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
Good. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Thanks for asking. What's your name?
DK.
Nice to meet you, DK. Where are you from?
New Haven.
Oh, wow. You flew all the way from New Haven to Boston to come see the debate tonight?
Yes, sir.
Very nice, very nice. What were your thoughts on how the candidates did tonight during the debate?
Zach and Mark, they did really good, but it kind of did get heated really fast. You know what I'm saying? So, Texas, I like how Zach did hit Texas. You know, it's benefiting me basically because I'm still kind of poor. You know what I'm saying? But Mark did make a point about how they're gonna fund the federal government to get back to us. So I really don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. If the election was tomorrow, who would you say you would vote for? Based off of tonight's debate.
Probably vote for Zach.
All right, well, thank you for taking the time to come and do this interview with us, and we hope you have a great night.
You too.
Hey, how's it going? What's your name?
Chris.
Oh, Chris, you're from the first debate in Hudson City. You're from the first interview. Did you get plastic surgery?
Yes, sir.
Very nice, very nice. Well, it's good to see you again, and I'm glad that you were able to make it to the second presidential debate. Tell us what you thought about this debate compared to the last debate.
I mean, last debate was shit. That shit was crazy than one. But this debate, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was crazy. But it wasn't as much screaming as the last one. Because it had way better points than, it had better, like, meanings and shit like that than last time. Overall, that shit was, good as hell.
All right. During last debate, you mentioned during our interview that you would vote for Mark Munyon, but during the comments, you said that you changed your mind and changed it to Zach. So after tonight's debate, being able to be at both debates, who would you say you're leaning more towards, or who would you say you would vote for if the election was tomorrow?
If it was, honestly, that would be a hard choice because they do both have really like good points for their perspectives. So like right now, I mean, it's a hard decision. honestly wouldn't know if it was this tomorrow.
All right, well, thank you for being here, and thank you for taking time to answer our questions. We do hope to see you for a third time at the last debate, and hopefully by then you'll have your answer. But with that being said, thank you and great night. Well, Mr. Vice President, how do you feel about your debate performance compared to last debate?
Personally, I feel good about my performance. You know, I think I did a good job. My opponent was also, I believe, did a good job. You know, it was a great debate. I really enjoyed it. Instead of this time, you know, my opponent wasn't screaming at me, which, you know, that's a positive.
What are the key takeaways that you believe are crucial that was known here at this debate here tonight?
I think that the crucial things that the American people need to know is when I implement this new tax system, I plan on, you know, like I said previously, federal taxes to 20% and local and business taxes, or not local, business taxes, small and big business taxes to 18% instead of the 37% that they now sit in. My opponent likes to argue that it's going to cripple the economy, all this stuff. But if we have more people, that equals more jobs, that equals more money flow throughout the whole entire economy.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Plus, if we have the resource
we're very
world,
short on time here, sir, so we need to move on to our next question.
the gold exchange system.
What do you have to say? Well, what are you going to do to prepare for the final debate before the big decision of the American people comes down upon this nation?
Well, obviously, you know, I have supporters like Mr. DK and Good Burger here tonight. You know, they're some good people. What I'm going to do for this next debate is I'm going to spend more time on certain subjects I cannot get too much into and prepare myself even more like I have done this debate. And hopefully get some more supporters while I'm at it.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, for your time. We look forward to launching the final debate, and we wish you and your campaign well. Thank you.
I wish you well too, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for taking some time out of your day to come interview with us. How do you feel about tonight's performance?
I thought we did, you know, I think the campaign did really well. We came in with a better approach. We were more professional than my counterpart. You know, of course, he still doesn't understand a few policies, and I think that's what the American people are misinformed when he, you know, tells them these things. But overall, I think we did really well tonight. Oh, and I also want to thank you for having us both here in this interview.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and also thank you to Congresswoman Melanie, who is your sister, for being here tonight as well. Thank you very much, ma'am. What are the key takeaways that you believe were crucial in tonight's debate?
I think the key takeaways was just the overall poise that I believe I came with. I felt that I outdid you know, my counterpart. You know, we worked really hard to make sure that we know what we were talking about. We've studied our research, and we know the statistics are flawlessly proven. You know, like I said before, you know, my counterpart likes to mention that, you know, the tax system is only 37% when it's actually not, and there's actually a progressive system. And people that don't make enough money, they don't even stand close to that percentile.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. For a final question here, what is going to be your game plan going into our final debate, which will be the last debate in this election cycle before the American people lay the hammer down with their decision on who they want their next commander-in-chief to be?
I think the big crucial thing is that you know, I want to see and visit, you know, more of the American people. So I'm planning to host or you know, run a couple rallies here and there. I plan to do 3, maybe even more. Hopefully one here, one in Washington, and maybe in New Haven or in another state as well. You know, by getting a reach to the people and you know, understanding their voices and, you know, being overall the appearance of them, of who they're voting for, is most important. And going into the next debate is crucial with research and knowing what's going on.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, for taking the time to come and speak with us. We will look forward to the last debate, which will be happening in Washington, D.C. We wish you and your campaign well in this election, and we can't wait to see what's to come. Thank you.
No, I would like to thank you. Thanks for having us, and it's been an honor. I appreciate it.